Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I am filming my best books of 2022. So this video is always one of my favourites to film. I love looking back at my reading of the past year and just kind of like seeing how my reading tastes have evolved and changed. And if you watched one of my last videos, I can't remember which video, I'm sorry to say, it might have been my kind of like life update type video. I basically go into how my reading tastes have really changed this year. Over the past couple of years, I've really made the transition from more like YA fantasy to more fantasy romance to more straight romance, and actually like I do read a lot of fantasy still, but these are definitely more adult fantasy. So I can't wait to show you guys what my best books of the year are. Grab yourself a cup of tea, settle in. I'm sat here by my Christmas tree, and of course a nice warming cup of coffee with me too. So I really hope this video just gives you all the cozy vibes. And before we do get started, please do make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of the videos I've got planned for the next year. So let's just get cracking, shall we? Because I have got a lot of opinions, a lot of like new books that are suddenly my all-time favorites. So let's just get started. So I've tried to put these in like some form of order. So we're going to be starting with my 10th favorite book of the year, working up to my #1 book of the year. Now let me tell you, ordering these books was a painful experience because they are all so great. But my 10th favourite book of the year, and it may be last, but it certainly isn't least, it is The Burning God by R.F. Quang. So this takes its spot at number 10 because this is the conclusion to the Poppy War series. And this may have been on a lot of people's favourite books last year, but actually I only finished the series this year. So I'm late to the party with the Poppy War series, but I finally finished it. I rated The Burning God 5 heartbreaking stars. And with all the books mentioned today, I will try to leave the corresponding video I did on them down below in the description bar, but oh my god, was this book phenomenal. I can't go into too much plot detail because of course, spoilers, it is the final book in a series, and the Poppy War series is a grimdark fantasy series, so it means that the characters do very morally grey things. It is one of the grittiest fantasy series that I've read in a long time. It is adult fantasy, and I must say The Burning God like didn't pull any punches. Like this was full on the conclusion of a war, and let me just say the ending of this was absolutely superbly done, but also one of the most heartbreaking endings I've read of a fantasy series in a very long time. R.F. Quang is just an incredible author, and I really felt like this series could have easily been a long series, you know? But each of these books are well over 500 pages, and not one of the pages feels like it's too long or it's dragging, you know? Every single word is really thoughtfully done, and really like every single plot thread is really thought out. So if you've not yet read the Poppy War series, I really would recommend, but The Burning God by R.F. Quang is my number 10 pick for my best books of the year. Now my number 9 is something quite different. So this is a dark romance book, and if you watched one of my last couple of videos, you will know that I did a video all about a beginner's guide to dark romance. So as a newcomer to the genre, I have been doing a lot of reading in dark romance this year, and Still Beating was one of those recommendations that came up time and time again. So I knew that I needed to read this book. And Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman is of course a dark romance that sees two people who are sworn enemies. One is this girl, and the other guy is actually her sister's fiance. They get kidnapped together and they are forced to fall in love with each other by this very sick serial killer. Very dark themes, I must say. Like I was really disturbed for a lot of this book, and it did really take it out of me. I was kind of like, is this too much? You know, kind of like really just testing my boundaries there. But the second half of the book is really them examining whether they are in love with each other because of their experience and their shared trauma, or if they have been in love with each other all along. And the way that this book is done, there are some very traumatic scenes, there are trigger warnings galore, so please look those up if you do want to read this book, but all of them are so well written, like so sensitively handled. Like there is a lot of dark stuff going on in this book, but I felt safe with this author, and I think like that is so important with dark romance. You want to know that the author isn't going to be glorifying anything that's so extreme or so morally wrong. And Still Beating for me was the right balance between not glorifying, it really helped unpack the trauma that both of these characters had, as well as being a really like addictive romance. And I think that's so important. Like with dark romance, you need to have a good build of the romance as well as the more like traumatic themes, you know? So I absolutely love Still Beating. I gave this book 5 stars, and if you are looking for a dark romance book, I really would recommend this, but this is coming in hot at my number 9. So at number 8, we have one of my like new emerging favorite authors here, and I'm sure she's everyone's favorite author because I feel like this has been the year of Taylor Jenkins Reid. So of course I had to mention Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid as my number 8 book of the year. So Carrie Soto's Back is not a book I would typically pick up. It doesn't sound appealing to me whatsoever. It is about a huge tennis star, like the best tennis player in the world, Carrie Soto, and it's basically sees her coming out of retirement to do one last tournament, to do like one last go of the circuit, to hold onto her top spot as like the best tennis player in the year, like the most Grand Slams. So this really was like, at first I was like, oh, I don't know a lot about tennis. I'm not a big tennis fan. I didn't really know how I would actually enjoy this. But then you are swept away in like a compelling character study, but also a beautiful like historical-esque novel, because it is set between like the 50s to the present day, I guess, and really explores a sports personality at the top of their prime and then them kind of losing that world class status and the identity shifts that Carrie really goes through because of that. And is there a Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I will not give 5 stars? Like, I don't know, but this was absolutely perfect. I have never wanted to play tennis so much after a book before, but this one will make you do it because like it was just so addictive, and everything about this book like tugged at the heartstrings. Like there is a very sad scene in this book and I just, oh god, it actually made me cry. So I adored Carrie Soto's Back. I'm unsurprised at this stage that of course this was 5 stars. So let me know if you enjoyed this book, if you read this year, and what rating you gave it down in the comments below. Okay, so from one TikTok favorite to another TikTok favorite, coming in at number 7. This was the year I finally read Colleen Hoover, and my lord am I happy that I did. I was so behind the TikTok hype that it was embarrassing, so I was like, I need to just like read this, you know? So I read Verity, and I also read It Ends With Us. I gave both books, I think, no, I gave It Ends With Us 4 stars, but Verity I gave 5 stars because holy hell, this is exactly what I wanted in a book. This is a kind of romantic thriller, I guess. It is a novel about a writer who is basically contracted to finish off writing a very, very popular series by a female author. She was in a horrific car accident and she can't speak, she can't move. She is, you know, basically paralyzed. And our main character, Lowen, is brought in to her beautiful house to basically finish off the series. Lowen ends up staying at Verity's house. Verity is the famous author. And then Lowen meets Verity's husband and also Verity's child as well. And this amazing mystery really unravels where you start to learn that maybe Verity isn't all that she seems, and perhaps there is a very, very dark side to this woman who is in bed upstairs, unable to speak or move. And weird things start happening around the house where it looks like Verity is very much still there and is perhaps more aware than Lowen realised. So this concludes in an absolutely crazy double twist of a story, and I absolutely adored this. I think like this is my favourite out of the 2 Colleen Hoover books that I've read so far, but it was that kind of blend of thriller and romance that I just absolutely adored. So Verity is my 7th favourite book of 2022. I adored this. I really wasn't expecting to love this as much as I did. The hype is real, guys. The hype is real. Okay, so coming in at number 6. This surprised me by how low down my rankings this book is, because usually this author would be number one always. I have a lot of thoughts, but basically coming in at number 6 is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. So this is book 2 in the Crescent City series, and this is adult urban fantasy from Sarah J Maas, and this is the sequel to House of Earth and Blood. So as you can see, this is one big doorstopper of a book, and for most of this book I was not impressed. I already don't really get on very well with urban fantasy, but it's Sarah J Maas. She is my all-time favourite author. I love everything she puts out. House of Sky and Breath for me was only a 5-star book because of the ending, really, and I really had to think, is this more of a 4-star or a 5-star? I think the ending alone is 5 stars for me, but as a whole book I would say it's probably more of a 4 stars. I found that there were a lot of things in this that maybe didn't need to be there, but this is still a Sarah J Maas book. The quality, the world building, the characterization, everything about this book is just on a different level. Like, it just is so professional and like thought through and slick. And despite not liking urban fantasy, I really care about these characters. I really care about this world. The ending. Now, this is why it's in my best books of the year, because I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you've read this book, you know you're in on the club, you know, like, anyway. This is one of the most craziest endings I've read in a book. It comes in at number 6. I think it had a lot of teething issues at the start of the book, like a lot of pacing issues. It does not need to be this big, genuinely. I think there's a lot of scenes that could have been cut out, and it just needed, I think, like a very thorough edit. But I feel like maybe Sarah J Maas gave us all of this because of the ending and kind of what that means. So without any spoilers, I'm going to just say House of Sky and Breath came in at number 6, and it was enjoyable. I enjoyed the ending. It was worth the 800 pages or whatever it is. I also did a reading vlog about this book, so I'll leave that link down below if you want spoilery detail. So coming in at number 5 is a complete surprise to me, but this is the year that I discovered romance author Sophie Lark, and my god, am I happy that I discovered her. So I've seen her recommended through a lot of different romance channels that I love, but this year I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start reading her most popular series, which is the Brutal Birthright series. And that series starts off with Brutal Prince, and all these books are mafia romances. So it's basically about a few different mafia families around Chicago. And my favourite so far in this series that I read this year is the second book in the series called Stolen Heir. Now, I think looking at other people's reviews of the books in this series, everyone shares my opinion. This is a standout book. This is an absolutely addictive, heartbreaking, romantic, addictive book. And this actually features on a kidnapping plot, which sounds very dark and a bit kind of like sordid, but basically one rival crime family kidnaps the daughter of another rival crime family, and it just goes on from there, which is really, really compelling. The romance is perfect. Like, these two characters actually are just so perfect together, and like they just have incredible chemistry. Like, everything about them is just perfect. So I really would recommend Stolen Heir. I think all the books in this series that I've read so far, I think I'm up to book 4 maybe, but every single one of them has been extremely well written, very well done, very addictive, very fast paced, and it's already cemented Sophie Lark as one of my favourite authors, full stop, really, because I think she has just got like a perfect blend between keeping, you know, just great characterization, great plot, and then also mixing in amazing romance. So at number 5, Stolen Heir, I just absolutely loved it. It was a standout romance title for me this year. If you've not yet read this series, I urge you to, because it is just perfect on every level. In a similar vein, coming in at number 4 is another dark romance, and it is Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlson. So this book series took me by surprise. In a matter of days, I binge read both books in the duology. And let me just say, content warnings, trigger warnings galore, please look these up. This is not a light book. This is a really dark book, and at times I had to look away, like it was quite intense, but the writing, the characterization, the stakes, everything about this series is intense. So this is basically a stalker romance, and you really have to have a bit of nerve to read this series because it doesn't shy away from the very, very dark subject matter. And the actual romance in this is why I really, really loved this book and why I would really recommend it. I did give this book 5 stars because I was hooked. Like, even though the subject matter was so dark and I had to shy away a few times from the page, you know, to kind of put it down for a bit, I was gripped the entire way through. The characters were so complex and multi-layered, and even though this is a stalker romance, it's very much more than that. Like, there is an overarching theme to this series which kind of relates to like human trafficking and, you know, modern slavery and everything, that the kind of love interest is trying to, he's trying to basically destroy the industry. He's trying to bring down the evil people who are kind of engaging and ruling this kind of, you know, industry. So he is very morally grey, the love interest, even though he has this very moral purpose where he tries to eradicate evil. His methods are questionable. He kills and tortures people. He does not, you know, he does not give people any favors. He is quite intense. But I absolutely adored this series, and Haunting Adeline, the first book, really was just incredible to me. So that's my number 4 choice. I bet you all didn't think I would say that, so there we go. We are now in the realms of the top 3, and coming in at number 3 is Babel by R.F. Quang. So, wow. I've been anticipating this book for a long time, and when I finally got to reading this, I was blown away. I was like, how has R.F. Quang done this? Like, this is the most intelligent, complex, just, I can't get over how her mind came up with this book. Of course, I gave this 5 stars. I think the one reason it's not number 1, like it would have been number 1, the only reason it wasn't for me was because I feel like it was obviously very long, and there were times when the pacing was like a teeny bit off for me, just in terms of like driving us towards a conclusion, you know. That was my only kind of negative about the book, but it's a very, very tiny negative because of course I gave it 5 stars, you know. So this is a colonial look at the dark academia genre. It is set in 19th century Oxford, and it basically focuses on Babel, which is an institute of translation, and they specialize in magic, basically crafting magic from silversmithing. So they inscribe silver bars, and by doing that and using the complexities and nuances of language and translation, they can create magic. And their entire society is built on the magic that they have from this. But it's only the most privileged and the English who really reap the benefits of this magic. It really takes a look at empire and colonialization, and our main character Robin is from China, and he really has to grapple with the opportunities that Babel has presented him, but also the nature of him being there in the first place. He is being used for his Cantonese, his language. And it's just like really, really, really interesting. It's such a unique concept. I've never read anything like this book. If you've never read this before, I really would. This is a standout fantasy book, and I really hope will be remembered for years to come because it's doing something very different compared to the usual fantasy books out there. So this is my number 3. I absolutely adored this book. R.F. Quang is one of my favorite all-time authors. I mean, she's got 2 places in this top 10, so of course she has to be, but amazing book, amazing. So coming in at number 2, you probably won't be surprised if you know my reading taste or what I've been obsessed with for the last few years. It is Kingdom of the Feared by Kerry Maniscalco. This is the 3rd and final book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. So this is a historical fantasy series set in Italy in, I don't know what time period, but it's kind of like, I want to say like 1600s, 1700s. And this features a witch called Amelia, and she is basically after answers because her twin sister Vittoria has been murdered. And I'm not going to go into what this book actually covers because this is the 3rd and final book in the series, but let's just say this book series features the 7 princes of hell, and we really go down into the depths depths of that, you know, like we really explore their realm. There is an intense romance in this series that I am full on obsessed with. Like Wrath, who is the love interest, is my everything. I love him. I love his relationship with Amelia, and this book is quite spicy. So, you know, if you're not into that, let's just say the series aged up. And I kind of appreciated that because it's quite a dark book. Like, it's all about murder, it's all about the princes of hell. Like, you need to go there, you know, you need to kind of show what each of these 7 princes who represent each of the 7 sins, you need to really look at what they're dealing with there. So, unsurprisingly, this book was one of my most anticipated books of the year. It delivered on almost every single count. I'm obsessed. So number 2 is Kingdom of the Feared. Please read this series. Like, I talk about it all the time, but if there's one thing to get out of this, you need to read all these books, okay? So we're on to number 1. This is my book of the year. And I think this is gonna surprise a few of you, but I have loved seeing so many of your comments, mainly on my fantasy romance book recommendations video, which I will leave linked down below. The amount of people that I've heard from the comments have said that I've inspired them to read the Bridge Kingdom series this year. I am obsessed. Like, I'm so thankful that you are trusting my recommendations and reading the Bridge Kingdom. So my number 1 book of the year is The Inadequate Heir by Danielle L Jensen. I had very reluctant ideas about going into this book. So let me just preface this by saying this is kind of like a side book to the Bridge Kingdom series. So the first 2 books in the Bridge Kingdom focus on Lara and Aaron, and it's really about like warring nations, and you know, she is forced to marry the prince of a rival nation, but she definitely has other ideas and she wants to bring that nation down for her own political agenda and her father's. Now the 3rd book in the series is about Lara's brother. And let me just say, if I thought the Bridge Kingdom was good, I had no idea what Danielle L Jensen could really achieve until she wrote The Inadequate Heir. This book on every single front is just perfect. It is enemies to lovers, and it is focused on Lara's brother called Kerry, and Kerry basically meets a general who is part of another enemy nation. So there's lots of different nations at war with each other basically in this series, but he basically falls in love with a general of an enemy nation, and it's kind of set during like parallel to the first 2 books in the series, which is really interesting because then you get to see Aaron and Lara at different points of the journey, and everything about this book was perfectly done, so clever. The romance was beautiful, stunning, heartbreaking. When I say that these 2 are like absolute enemies, like they can't even get over their hatred at some points. Like, to me, this is how enemies to lovers is actually supposed to be done, because like, you know, they are enemies. Like, even though they have this desire for each other, their head is like against the other person at several different points, and the trust really takes time to build. And I just found that the journey was just so beautiful. There's also a lot of betrayal in this book, and the way that this book ended, when I say cliffhanger, like, I am not well. I need the next book, Danielle L Jensen, like yesterday. And I think already that book is going to be my most anticipated book of next year, because I need to know what happens to my beloved couple, okay? So please read this book series. If you take one thing away, I know I said that about Kingdom of the Feared and all the other books in this video, but wow, this book is phenomenal. And I have trust in Danielle L Jensen. Like, she's one of my new favorite authors now, and this is adult fantasy, it's fantasy romance, but you all need to read it, genuinely. So that was my book of the year, The Inadequate Heir, and all of these books have really just made the year for me, and I hope that you have spotted a few of your favorites in this video as well. Please do leave them down below in the comments. Which books are your favorite? I would be dying to know. So guys, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for all your support this year. I've appreciated you all more than you know. It's been a tricky year for me. It's been like, my videos have been all over the place, but I'm so thankful that you're still here and still supporting me, and I can't wait to create more videos for you in 2023. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye.